Cool. So yeah, thanks for coming, guys. I'm Alex Walker. I'm the service manager for targeted youth support at Young Somerset. Started in the organisation February 2021. Was the operations manager at that time for a project called the Jigsaw Project, which I'll go into detail about first, and then I'll open space for questions, and then we'll go into the other ones afterwards, and another area of the organisation as well, which I don't oversee. So Jigsaw Project is funded by CAMS. It is for reducing hospital readmission rates for young people across Somerset. We get referrals from Musgrove and Yeovil hospitals, CAMS liaison services, and that piece of work is working with a young person for anywhere between 8 to 12 weeks. We might get extensions where required if a young person is still struggling. It's using a strength focused framework, so looking at what a young person might be interested in, what they want to talk about, to build a relationship, so that they then feel like they can support themselves to reduce their own emotional distress. And maybe we'll look at other factors that are happening within their life as well. There might be some issues at home or issues in school, and we'll advocate for young people in those settings as well. And at times previously have done some mediation in the homes as well, whereby parents and young person might not be communicating with each other that well. Parent possibly isn't responding appropriately to the level of their child's distress. So just working with them to, talk to them a little bit differently, try a different approach, maybe take the foot off the gas, a little bit, instead of going, "Are you okay? Can I help with anything?" Just saying, "I can see that you're in pain, or I can see that you're struggling. When you're ready to talk to me, you know that I'm here." Have a little bit more of an open door policy, and that's worked really, really well. Lots of the parents and young people we've done that piece of work with, things have got better much quicker, just because the parent, you know, wants to do everything they can to help their child. Sometimes you just need to give a kid a little bit of space if they feel like they're depressed or anxious. So yeah, back to the strengths focus stuff. The work that we could do could be as simple as doing smart work with them. When I was doing some active delivery on the project, I do a lot of cooking with young people. It's a good space to, have conversation, do something creative. We do sports with young people. I was taking a young person to Minehead Eye to do some skateboarding last year. I turned up at the house and they said, "I'm into this," and I said, "I've been doing that for 24 years. I'll teach you how to do it." So we'll try and play to the strengths of what the youth worker can do, and also, what the young person's interested in. Like I said before, just for building a relationship and creating a safe space for fun and conversation, really. It's all voluntary. So if a young person says, "No, I don't want to have that service," then we're not going to keep on banging down the door to try and get them to engage. During the first year of that project's life, so April 21 to March 22, the project worked successfully with 150 young people. And of those young people that were worked with within the project, there was only a readmission rate for those kids of 8%, and 4%, well, half of that 8%, 4% of the overall target group were still worked with despite readmitting, because there were other complications like ASC, systemic factors and that sort of stuff, whereby if we did pull away, it could have been a detriment to the young person's health, and definitely the relationship that they built with the youth workers. So some really, really good work was done. As a result of that piece of work and reducing the hospital readmission rates for our cohort, the CAMS liaison readmission rates were actually down by 12% that year, despite having an overall admission rate up of 20%. And I'm not saying we did all of that, but there would have been some transference in there. So yeah, very proud of that piece of work during its first year. There's currently 4 youth workers working on that team, 2 full-time, 2 part-time, and an ops manager as well. So sorry, 5 youth workers, but one is got a very, very small caseload, and pro-rated, they can work with up to 10 young people, if they're a full-time equivalent. I think I've covered everything for Jigsaw. So I can open up questions to yourselves if there's anything. Okay. So off the back of the success of the Jigsaw project, about halfway through, there were conversations being had on how that model could work with young people that were experiencing more critical levels of emotional distress and in a perpetual state of crisis. So young people that might be regularly attending the Oak in Taunton with high levels of suicidal ideation, going to train tracks, throwing themselves off another particular bridge whereby one young lady actually fractured her spine, eating glass, smashing up their care homes, that sort of stuff. And that's the Mosaic Project. So using, again, the same strength-focused methodology. What does the young person want to do? How do they want to engage? Can we use activities to facilitate conversation, to understand how they're feeling, what's going on with them, and also advocate for them in different professional settings? These young people were referred in through various tiers within CAMS and various tiers within children's social care. It's a joint funded piece of work. So the now Integrated Care Board, which encompasses the NHS and children's social care and other local authority services, adult social care and all that sort of stuff. So it's funded by both, and this piece of work is working with a young person for up to 25 hours in the space of a month, and if needed we can get a re-referral a month on and another month on if they need some additional support. What we found with this piece of work is young people quite often have attachment issues, so build relationships really effectively with our youth workers because they're given quite a hefty chunk of time to work within the month, which has been really useful in terms of exploring what the young person's voice is that's leading them to their level of emotional distress, whereby CAMS and children's social care are very limited in the amount of time that they can offer young people, because it might be an hour or two a week depending on what service they're involved in. But if a young person wanted to, within the Mosaic Project, they could have up to 25 hours in a week. So quite often these young people are not in education, employment or training, so they do have a lot of capacity to engage in having a chat, which is really, really useful. And yeah, that piece of work has been absolutely fantastic. And as a result, we've helped reduce calls to crisis lines such as the enhanced outreach team or the emergency duty team within CAMS and children's social care respectively. Less calls to 999, less police call outs and stuff for particularly young people that were involved in this, and less cases of missing persons as well, whereby young people quite often within the children's social care side of our work would go running in the evening quite a lot, and it's really fascinating actually the relationship they've built with some of the youth workers. They've texted our workers, and I don't like to use the term, but crying for help as it were, saying I'm about to go running, and they wouldn't have done that with their care home staff before, or the children's social care colleagues, and that's allowed us to do something very proactive to help support that young person, to stop them from running away, and again reduce the strain on crisis intervention services elsewhere. Yeah, very, very happy with that piece of work. We've got 5 workers in that as well, 4 full-time, 1 ops manager. Their caseloads are more 3 and 4 at any given time for each practitioner because of the amount of time that they can work with a young person. And that is, oh, and actually just another piece actually before we go over to questions for that. So we meet every day, CAMS, children's social care and Young Somerset at 11 o'clock, and we discuss some of the most vulnerable young people around the county, and work out whether someone's going to be referred into that service. In terms of what that's done for supporting vulnerable young people across the county, it's been fantastic, because every day we're able to, if no one's coming into the service, we can go, okay, who do we need to be aware of, who's running away, who's in hospital, who's been taken out of county for extensive treatment that they need elsewhere, so we can all really strategize together on in terms of what the best possible support is. In my, how long have I been doing this work now? In my 12, 13 years in this sector, this has been one of the most creative and instrumental things in terms of supporting young people that I've seen. So yeah, very happy with how it's been going. We're 6 months in, just doing the second quarterly report today, and yeah, everything's going really well. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions regarding Mosaic, please fire them over. Okay, fantastic. So the next project that I'm going to talk about is called Off the Ward, and that started about 3 months ago, following colleagues in the diabetes ward at Musgrove, looking at what other things could be done to support vulnerable young people, but with diabetes across the county, whereby they might not be engaging in clinical services or just looking after their own health. There has been some extensive and really good work done up in Nottingham and Leeds, and some other areas, but on a smaller scale, doing this sort of work really. And we use a similar format as, again, Jigsaw, Mosaic. You know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Strength focused, what's the young person interested in? We are there without an agenda, although they've been referred in through the diabetes service. The clinicians will say, look, we're aware that you're struggling with X, Y, and Z, which might be having an impact on your physical health. Here's a guy, we've just got one worker at the moment, he's called Dave, he's absolutely fantastic. Go and spend some time with Dave. That work is not limited to time at this moment, because of how new it is, and we're looking at how we can make it a little bit broader. So these young people might be working with Dave for 3 months, 6 months, a year, depending on what the significant need is for them. Frustratingly, it's one man across such an extensive county that doesn't have a very good road infrastructure, so that presents its own challenges. Dave regularly goes to clinics in hospitals and in community hospitals to discuss what he could do with young people whilst they're there talking to clinicians. At the moment, it's going really well. He's got an active caseload at the moment of about 10. It could be that the young people that are involved in that don't need to be seen every week. They might need to be seen every other week or once a month. We're just doing a lot of test and learning at the moment, and that's going really well. We were about to go out to advert for another role within that team, looking at youth work in a clinical environment in a non-clinical format. So we've just been commissioned, again, by CAMS, are absolutely fantastic in terms of supporting us to do the work that we do, but to have a youth worker based out of Oak Ward in Musgrove, so the children's ward, and that isn't specifically to work with young people with mental health issues. It could be that there is a young person on ward with spinal injuries or eating disorders, and or, you know, waiting for a care placement due to their mental health. And they, you know, some young people are there for a month, 2 months, 3 months. I was on the ward a couple of months ago talking to the matron about this piece of work. She said there'd been someone that had been there for 7 months. We want to provide them something different. These young people might not have enough stimulus, might not have enough informal education, or have the confidence to talk to other young people that might be on the ward as well, that are also experiencing the same challenges and are stuck there. So we wanted to drop a youth worker in that can facilitate activity groups between them, and also provide one-to-one just to talk. And for those that are able to, in a safe manner, take them off the ward, you know, go for a stroll around Musgrove Hospital, take them down to Vivery Park, or whatever it is, you know, just something a little bit more different to think critically about how we can effectively use that space with young people. I'm thinking about how we can turn, they've got like an education classroomy sort of thing, how we could turn that into a youth club for young people. So when the youth worker isn't there, they can still go and do things with their peers that are also living on the ward with them. That piece of work is going to be definitely working Saturdays and Sundays. So these young people have some stimulus at the weekends when there's less staff, and then we're looking to arrange what other days they might have staff members, have a staff member there as well. We're also looking at the moment about how, in the context of this project, youth work can be practiced in other fields where there is a diagnosis like oncology, palliative care, epilepsy, that sort of stuff. But that's all kind of just in the woodwork at the moment, and we're formulating ideas based on how successful these pieces might be. So that's off the ward. If anybody's got a question or two. Okay, so the next piece of work I'm going to tell you about is RAISE. So that's Race Awareness, Inclusion, Support and Education. So they started in the 90s in Yeovil to support people from migrant backgrounds to be able to cohesively engage within the community and help to reduce racism, which was being perpetuated by some members of the Yeovil community against those that were moving into Yeovil. This has only just come under my umbrella about 2 weeks ago. They were, I think, assimilated might be the right term, into the organisation around this time last year. And we're looking at how we can strengthen what their offer is and grow their team. They've got 3 members and they're all part-timers, unfortunately, due to the amount of funding they've got. But they work across all of Somerset, like I said about what they were doing in Yeovil back in the 90s, to reduce racism. So young people that might be exhibiting racist behaviours, to work with them in a mentoring capacity, to provide some social education around why they're being racist and how to stop it, but looking at what affects them systemically that might be leading them to be racist. Work with those young people that have been victims of racism to create a positive pro-social identity for them and help them engage with peers who aren't going to inflict them with racist behaviours, and then work in schools on racial inclusion and diversity and that kind of stuff in small groups, also to support parents at times whereby they feel they're not able to engage in the community because of their race or culture. And similarly, it's the youth work model that I've talked about before. It's strengths focused. Those guys will do less activity based stuff. It's more conversations, more walk and talk, but sitting chair to chair, how a therapist might do. But if those young people do want to engage in activities, then they can do. One of the things that we're looking at is how we can get those guys positions to be full-timers, so they can do more work across the county and work with more vulnerable young people, those that are experiencing racism and those that are perpetrators of, to understand what's led them to be perpetrators of racism. Yeah, they're a really, really good team. Interested to see how that piece of work unfolds as we move forward. It's got one of the very short piece which has just started as well, so I won't open up to any questions around RAISE just yet, but you guys can ask some questions after the next bit. So we've got another piece called We've Got This, which is a joint commissioned piece of work with SASP, the support sport partnership across the county for young people and adults. And that's a peer mentor. So our youth worker who's on that, who's also doing some work within Jigsaw, he has had his own life experiences. He's in his 30s now, but without going too much into detail about them and being boundaried in his work, he's there to support young people between the ages of 16 and 25. The same way that I've talked about before, strength focused mentoring framework. There's less limited timescales on this one as well. This is more of a 3 months, let's see how you're doing. 4 months, let's see how you're doing. You know, what sort of work do these people need from their perspective? Not something that's prescripted where you come in and go, you've got this many hours, you've got this much time. It's like, okay, we'll meet a couple of times a week at the start if we need to. We'll meet every other week. We'll meet once a month. We're just looking at what that looks like at the moment. But again, another fantastic piece of work, and something for young people within the county where they feel like they're struggling, have got a space to go and talk. Rashid, the guy that's leading on it, said his first session that was last Monday. He's brand new in the organisation. Said it was great. Him and this chap who's about 18 just went to Nero for a couple of hours, had a natter, explored, you know, what the guy was struggling with, what was affecting him. And we'll meet again this week, and I've already started talking about how these pieces of work can fit with someone's shift patterns. We'll try and tailor our support as much as we possibly can to suit the needs of the young people. So whether that's meeting in a community setting, school, park, whatever, you know, we'll try and have as much discretion as we can to meet their needs, or at someone's home if required. But yeah, looking in forward again to what that looks like in the future. It's all very exciting. So any questions about Raise or We've Got This, or any other names I've thrown at you so far? Lots of names, and apologies for information overload. Okay, so the other department I don't work in, but I've worked closely with, is the wellbeing department. So that consists of a number of wellbeing practitioners that can provide low intensity CBT for young people that might be struggling with engaging in education, they're self-harming, they've got levels of suicidal ideation, but it's whereby their distress isn't at a level that CAMS might deal with, so more kind of community level intervention. These low intensity CBT practitioners can provide between 8 and 12 sessions of low intensity CBT, and they can work with young people in a community setting or in schools. So you've got two teams within the wellbeing team. You've got the community wellbeing practitioners, and that is a self-referral or a parent referral or a professional referral, which can all be accessed through our website. Then you've got the mental health in schools teams, and that is done through the wellbeing lead within confusing and complex. But there is a link on our website to a list of the schools that are MHST schools. So if you're ever thinking, oh, I don't know if my child's you know, at a school where they can get particular support, which is school centric, or whether I need to do a referral through the website, you can just have a look on the website and see which one is relevant. If someone were to make a mistake and do a referral to the CWPs, but they were at a wellbeing school, the referrer would be triaged. I think they triage every other day, and then a conversation would be had with the person that referred in and the school, so they'd be put on that waiting list. They wouldn't just get, you know, dumped in the mire, as it were. So that they're really, really well closely linked, those two teams. And that is, yeah, that's them in a nutshell, really. As much insight as I can give without fully understanding their practice. I just know that they do low intensity CBT.